When it comes to criticism of modern news media, believe it or not, there's a tiny dark corner where political left meets political right. That's where we found Professor Mickey Huff of the media watchdog group Project Censored. What would you say today is the mission statement of Project Censored?
Project Censored believes in a vibrant, truly independent, free press. We do not believe in censorship of any kind. We believe in factual, transparently sourced reporting.
Yes, let's look at fake news.
We believe that there shouldn't be outside interference. It's interfering with the transmission of information. We're in the business of teaching people how to think critically, not telling them what to think.
I think most every news outlet would agree with what you said about transparency and lack of censorship. So what makes you different from what's being done in the popular media?
Well, it's useful for corporate media outlets, establishment media outlets to purport or to wear on their sleeve codes of ethics and principles of free press and open journalism. But the practices are often very different, right? So when you see, the New York Times, for example, which is routinely referred to in the U.S. as the paper of record, sort of their motto is, all the news that's fit to print. I like to say all the news that fits the print, because they sort of have a frame of what's sort of considered a legitimate realm of controversy that creates this sort of false equivalency, or actually more of a false dilemma. The idea that we've heard from both sides now. Well, what often these major news outlets don't tell us, or don't tell the public in general, is that there's far more than two sides, and that there's a lot more evidence that might support more than two sides or perspectives that they're basically not going to tell people.
What is your view as to why those stories are censored?
Self-censorship is a problem. When we see high-profile journalists losing their jobs or sort of retiring unceremoniously because of some things that they were covering or doing, that's kind of a shot across the bow to the person right out of J school or right out of school that's saying, they can take down these people, who am I, right? So I'm gonna watch what I cover. And again, you don't need to have a list of stories on the wall in the reporting room that says no one will report about these stories. Although sadly enough, we do know some people that have talked about those kinds of lists in some newsrooms. But in most of these cultures, it's unstated.
You are politically left. Is that accurate?
I suppose I'm left. Yeah, I suppose it depends on what the ideological definitions are, but people would definitely likely see me as further to the left. I'm certainly outside of what the establishment ideological positioning is in the United States.
If you are generally politically left, do you see the problem of censorship of news as a right-wing or conservative problem that's primarily focused there?
I think it's a problem across the ideological spectrum, and I think that it's a power problem, and people like to control narratives because they like to control agendas. There is censorship on the left, there is censorship on the right, there's censorship almost everywhere in between. Remember, it's the corporate press, the Democrats, and the Washington Post in particular that really helped kind of weaponize the whole fake news idea and meme. And it sort of eventually gets off leash, right? You got to watch out when you have these kinds of tactics, right? If you're going to start wielding these kind of terms against people to try to influence public opinion, it makes it fair game for anyone to pick them up. And of course, the Trump campaign, and so they glommed onto fake news. So they could say anything they disagree with is fake news.
And there was only 2% of the vote left. And we were way up. If I lost every vote, we would have won the state of Pennsylvania. And the fake news refused to call it, right?
CNN, you're fake news. Washington Post, you're fake news. So that's an incredibly damaging thing, I believe, in terms of civil discourse, civic engagement, and just journalism in general. It's the idea that nothing is true.
Editors should rethink their news judgment. Journalists should persevere in going after the hard stories.
My ultimate goal would be that Project Censored wouldn't be needed at all, because we would have a vibrant and independent free press.
Project Censored's annual list of most censored stories of the year comes out each October. Next on Full Measure, your tax dollars being handed out to prison inmates. We follow the money.